It's Friday, March 17th, 2023. Um, it's St. Patrick's Day on the national schedule for this area. There's a gigantic parade and display that they still carry forward in New York City. Um, Last night, I went to Zion. There was they invited me for an adult conversation around or activity, just since, I'm going later today for Boy Scouts with my son, but something that's just mom centric as opposed to child centric. Um, I don't really think it's selfish, but whatever, on how ridiculous people become, or can be. So I have my papers from the event, told to bring a cup. I brought the correct cup for my entry into the building and into the conversation for whatever and whatever. Um, Now, yesterday they had on a champion that in quantum entanglement was presented and was in the neighborhood, knew he existed at the Glen and on Midland. So the Glen and Midland intersect for geographical, like, it happened in a timely fashion. And so the Glen and Midland intersect. I took the Crossroads sign when I was there last, just for placement in space and time, of where I was growing at one point for flowers in a garden that might be far away from the person they were promised to. That relationship never came to fruition in the way that one would expect. So there's this underlying, seething, I don't know what. Today they say, top of the morning to you. That's an Irish saying. For the National Day, that's today, in whatever that means. Um, so um, I'm watching this champion that I knew from my youth in his adulthood and how he grew up and what he now, in his professional life and in his adulthood, what he looks and sounds like. Um, and I realize just how uneducated I am on his world. Like, if we were going to have a conversation, I don't speak basketball. I don't I don't know anything, any of the rooms that he was introduced within and that he became an adult within. I am so um I wouldn't even know how to connect on a conversation about any of his world that he's surrounded by in his champion. Um I'm still stuck in some trap now in Queens, where my journey began. I'm now back to that room, and nothing has ever solidified into a pathway that should have been offered, or that was offered and then somehow withdrawn or blocked. By whom? I'm not clear. I don't know. Um, but there's that. Um, and then there's this thing about choosing boxes that the humans do that is associated with something called a March Madness that I made reference to in some other journal piece when I first heard about it. I've never heard of it. Even in the office space and the rooms that I was within that construct, the office professionals never offered me boxes or any conversation around picking boxes. I have no idea how boxes work. It's not something that was offered to me in my time here in New York. Just so upper management is clearly clearly understands my position on. I don't even know how to make a reference to something I've never been taught or never even offered. Just to make a connection with a champion. I mean, so I'm sticking with what I know. So there's this, just like I would assume if this person from the crossroads of our geographical introduction from our youth, um, he might not know how to explain Quidditch from Harry Potter in the most, like, he has a specialty and a forte, let's call it, being basketball. There's this Quidditch game that I'm not even really fully versed on. I mean, you see it mentioned. I'm not part of like a Harry Potter fan club. Like, again, I don't really get. I don't go to Comic Con. Like I. Mm-mm. So it's just a reference tool, an epithet that upper management perhaps put together as a utility of some sort in the field, um, to anchor space time, reality, consciousness. And at this point, I mean, I need a very specific level of help. And I don't even know at what level it exists. So here is, it's on Bravo. And this is the reference to the Harry Potter theoretical sport game and arena that I mean, again, they fly around on broomsticks. It's not a reality that exists in the physical realm of the third dimension within my life frame. Like, I've never gone into a room and seen somebody sit on a broomstick and levitate. It's never happened. Um so in this specific gravity, which Einstein is the theoretical professor on the relative gravity, for which I do not have extensive teachings in, but I do know his name, I do know the association, and then there's a formula. That's all I know. Um, so in that context, I've never seen anybody sit on a broomstick and actually fly. I've heard it used in storytelling and metaphor for something else. In this case, it would be Harry Potter. But there is this parallel to real world crossroads. What has crossed your path? Doesn't mean that I followed a career, doesn't mean I wrote a book report, doesn't mean that I have any idea about personal lives or paths chosen, taken. Again, if it wasn't for the television, like Spotlight, during this March Madness on CBS, no less, Channel 2, where in New York, I wouldn't have really known. I mean, I heard he played professional sports, but what team, what colors, what numbers, no idea.
The Harry Potter Marathon, continues next on Bravo.
Let's take it here. Number 5, 2 fronts of blood drink today's bloodbath. Smart money's on blood to survive any bet. Oh, yes, sir. 10 to 1 for blood. There you go. Thank you very much.
So somewhere this is someone's culture and reality. It's never existed in the series of rooms that I've been held within. Not at any level. Not soccer, not football, not football, like American football, not basketball, not anything sports related, Olympics, nothing has been part of the series of rooms that I've been within. Don't know why. It just has not. Especially in the later years where it was more survival just to try to get from one day into the next with making sure my children had what they needed. I couldn't even get enough at times to provide what I needed to provide for them by myself. So here today is this Friday, March 17th, 2023, and this is what they're talking about with these boxes that I've never even heard of and never been offered.
Yesterday and quickly.
My mother, on the other hand, says that she's never been taught about it, but she heard that some guys in the section of the office that she was in, she heard men speaking of it, never offered it, never taught it, but she confirmed it exists.
Quickly lived up to the hype, and there were some major upsets, although the winning teams didn't seem too upset about it. Jan Crawford is here with a recap of yesterday's action, and there was a lot of it. Jan, what's up?
We're just getting started, Nate, and we are seeing it is called March Madness for a reason. You had college hoops things, upending brackets across the country. In fact, of the millions of brackets that people submitted, there are so few remaining, only close to 800 perfect ones.
Off the window.
I have no idea how to translate that. Like, if my life was on the line and somebody came up and said, this is part of your American culture, I need you to tell me what this is, I would have no answer. I have no idea. It's not part of my American culture. This is something that exists, but it doesn't exist for me or my children. So that was on E55. This is now E54, where they actually put the only basketball champion I've ever met, but I met him prior to his championship or his adult career level. Again, I used to babysit at like an American Rust level at Crossroads. Like, that's where I was. So I don't know, like, again, where or what this is important for, although I know that it has pertinence. Again, I've got clock feature at symmetrical clocks, which have been harmed in the field multiple times prior to the second hand of time arriving and thereafter.
Not all about the favorites, as upsets and Cinderella stories are a madness mainstay.
It's an opportunity to really shine on the brightest lights.
Wally Serbiak covers the men's tournament for CBS and played in 2 tournaments himself, once reaching the Sweet 16 as a Cinderella with Miami of Ohio.
There are so many hungry teams out there, hungry coaches, hungry players like me when I was a 10 seed back in the day that want to make a name for themselves and have so much motivation in this NCAA tournament. And they play, like it's their last possessions of their life.
Oh, God. But while upsets are common, just know this: a number 1 seed has won in each of the last 5 years and 11 of the last.
Now, whatever in the reference I made yesterday with People's Republic and some whatever that I don't know how to read in some language that I refer to as Krillic. There is this, again, because the Irish have a different color system than this partial People's Republic and the delegates of United Nation. So there is this interesting crossover. I'm not quite clear, but what I will say is that in high school, especially around 11th grade, when I walked the halls of Cold Spring Harbor High School, there were two faces that I remembered from my youth. Only two remained. I know who they are. The rest of them ghosted. I don't know if they put me in separate classes. I have no idea. Nobody talked about it. But looking back and reflecting on it, and then that was right before we had to sell the house and move back to Queens, which then I was introduced to this local person that looked very much like Krum, Krum, from the Harry Potter series, which now I'm finding out in my adulthood. And he said he knew my grandfather, whatever that meant. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.